Oh, I think I've been influenced by every book I've ever read. I mean, that's for sure. I don't know how it all goes in, but I don't think I've ever read a book I've never had affect me. That can be good and that can be bad because as a reader, I'm so impressionable. So sometimes when I'm working on something, I won't even read for the period of time that I'm working on something because I'm so afraid that something by osmosis could go in. I could be, like or also sometimes you're the writer that you are, and maybe you're not the writer you really want to be, and it's not good enough. So if I read somebody whose work I really love, I'm like, dang, I still want to be that writer and not me. And I still go through that, and I do because I am a really, I think, impressionable reader, I want to say, but I'm hungry for all of it, and I love so many different styles. So I would say that truthfully, and people will be surprised maybe to hear this, but my favorite form is the short story. And I've yet to write a collection of short stories. I've yet to really write a children's collection of short stories or what I consider a short story. So the short story to me is still there waiting for me. And I've been influenced by, and it goes back to my childhood, all those best in children's books, short stories that were just in those. I love the world that was contained. Now I love poetry more than short stories, but I think in terms of I'm still working towards, I want to write, I don't know, Sheree tales, not fairy tales. I don't know where I'm going with that. So I've been influenced by every book and every author I think that I've ever come in contact with. Specifically as a children's writer, I was really, really influenced as a child by Walter de la Mare. And again, you might be surprised by that. It doesn't maybe obvious in my work. I mean, yes, Lewis Carroll, yes, A.A. Milne. A.A. Milne especially, the Winnie the Pooh, that was my first book I read when I was 6 years old, and all the wordplay in Winnie the Pooh. And you look at, the more it snows, tiddly-pom, the more it goes, tiddly-pom. I think the wordplay in A.A. Milne. But Walter de la Mare, in terms of opening the doors to that world of the imagination. So, I'm just thinking, someone came knocking at my wee small door. Someone came knocking, I'm sure, sure, sure. I listened, I opened, I looked to left and right, and not there was a stirring in the still dark night. I just think to this day that that's beautiful. People have, they think he's too romantic, he's too sappy, he's too whatever. He was, I think, a brilliant writer, and I'd like to study more about Walter de la Mare. I'd like to do, I think, critical work on some of his poems at some time. There's a Walter de la Mare Society in England. I just found that out, and I contacted them, and he still has a grandson living, and I'm like, oh, it would be so great if I could go there and do something. I'd like to, I think, write a group of poems based on Walter de la Mare's world, and I don't know, that's kind of where I am in my head about the next big project for children. I'd really like to do that. So I know for sure Walter de la Mare influenced me. I know that the Romantics influenced me through my father. And but deliberately in my own work, have I ever sat down and gone, I want to write a book like this? No, because I think that's like me thinking, no, that's not what you're not supposed to do. I think, T.S. Eliot's Cats influenced me a lot. I think when I was doing Dragons, the cats each have a different personality, and they're not even linked, I don't think, but that had a big influence. So that's a really hard question for me, because I there's no one I can single out and say that's the writer for me. I think even I can look at writing that's supposedly not good and find something good in it. So that's the other thing too. I just think that every little thing is kind of like a little miracle that's done. The Bat Poet by Randall Jarrell was a very, very influential book for me. And Russ Hunt, when I was studying children's literature, Russ Hunt gave me that book, and he's like, Sheree, I think you're really going to like it. And it took my head off, because it was about a little bat who wanted to be a poet. It was about the mockingbird who was the critic. It was about the chipmunk who said, say it again, the two responses of critic and then just the reader. It was such an allegory for the poetic process. And I mean, I still go back to that book over and over and over again and read it over and over and over again and think, oh, if I could ever write a book like The Bat Poet. I haven't found it yet. It's not there yet. But that would be my goal, to write a Bat Poet book, a book like The Bat Poet, because I think it's a beautiful, beautiful book. So that's been a big influence too. And like I said, from Swiss Family Robinson to to Treasure Island, all those classics. The man across the street from me, when I was a little girl, he worked for the St. John News Company. And I mean, it was illegal. I was getting contraband books. He, you know, when they say if the cover's been ripped off, this is damage, you know, it could be like, well, he worked for the St. John News Company. He's long dead, so I can tell this story now. And, you know, my parents didn't have a lot of books in the house, but every 2 months, Bill would bring over great big and set it down, because they knew I was this weird little kid who just went off with books all the time. And I had books. I had like the best. I had the classics. I had the Red Badge of Courage. And I just, for 5 years, I read books that had no covers on them. He kept me in my supply of books. Oh, look, there were damaged books again. Duh. Like, I don't think so. I think he took them and ripped off the covers and went, Sheree needs books. I think that's how I got my books illegal. And my dad was a Mountie, for shame.